sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. Groovy.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on our second test podcast of Box Office Pulp, the podcast stuffed to the brink with movies, madness, and moxie. Today we're talking about the horror comedy slasher Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. I am Flexo, your host, and I am joined by three masked men of menace. Recently escaped from a mental institution and stalking the streets of Haddonfield, Illinois, it's MB.
Hello.
Frightening.
So defeated.
Next up, we have the slayer of countless horny teenagers. From the watery depths of Camp Crystal Lake, it's Mike Voorhees.
What's up, ladies?
Hey there, ladies. And last up, we have the backwater butcher from Travis County, Texas. He's handy with the chainsaw and loves a good barbecue. It's James Lewis.
Hello there.
Oh, hello.
I like Flexo's tag-ups. Can I just say how perfect it is that Hero is Leatherface in this equation?
I knew that had to be Leatherface. I mean, that was the only option.
I mean, I was born on the floor of a butcher shop, so.
And he is currently wearing the face of his fallen enemies. Alright, as a warning, this podcast is definitely spoiler country. If you haven't seen Behind the Mask, do yourself a favor, stop right now, track down a copy. Apparently it's not on Netflix. Buy the DVD. Watch it, then come back and listen to us. Please, for the love of God, come back and listen to us, if this ever makes airwaves.
We can wait.
Spoilers, Mask dies.
No.
He just dies in the...
My go-to joke.
For a second there, I thought you were gonna say, spoilers, who's got the spoilers?
The podcast where nothing matters and the points are freebies.
Wow.
God damn it, Flexo.
Alright, to get us back on track, let's open it up just with a discussion on what we really like about this movie. I mean, why is it worth discussing in the first place? What is it about Behind the Mask that really pops to us? MB, go ahead, you take her.
I think what is really surprising about it is just you go in and you don't, like the first time I watched it, you didn't know what to expect, really. Like you look at the box art, you look at the premise, you don't really know like the level that it goes into, the whole, parody almost of the horror genre.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a big thing, really. Is that it's something where you watch it and you're not sure what you just saw, but you know you like it.
I don't know what that was, but it was beautiful.
Well, MB, were you facing the screen the whole time?
Yes, Mike, I was facing the screen the whole time.
I was just asking.
Yeah, but stop and think about it. But no, I mean, I can definitely get that, because how many movies do you have where there's, a documentary team following your serial killer? It's kind of a fresh little twist on it. Not to mention, I love the fact... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and there's so many scenes where you don't know whether it's meant to be played for laughs or whether it's, truly horrifying.
To me, that's another great thing about it, too, because on the surface, I say it's more of a comedy. But if you look at it, it's actually, kind of terrifying that people go along with this so willingly. And that you end up rooting for Leslie Vernon. You really do want him to succeed.
You do.
It has this underpinning of disturbingness, which is very nice.
Yeah, it's like the entire documentary crew, it's like they're almost monsters.
Yeah,
it's almost a
teenagers.
almost a satire on media in a way.
Yeah, which is so weird that at the final act they'd really drop the whole documentary angle of it, which is it's almost unfortunate. I mean, I really like how it plays out, but I would have liked it if they carried that on with the found footage kind of angle.
Yeah, it kind of does have kind of a turn near the end, which is great. I loved it, but
yeah, it's not really unprecedented in the film either, though, because when they're in the library, they do the same thing. For the action, they kind of cut to the standard horror film style.
Oh, it's actually one of the things I really love about the movie is how it's so meta that it takes place in a world of a horror movie, or outside the documentary camera. There's score, there's lighting. It's an actual movie that's taking place, but the documentary camera then strips everything away, and you see the nuts and bolts of how a horror movie would work.
It's really genius.
And I also love how even though that's happening, it also takes place in a world where all of the horror movie characters technically exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
It
it.
actually takes place in the Venture Brothers universe. Like, all these people exist, but nobody really cares.
You can almost look at...
Like,
I shouldn't say anything about Cabin in the Woods. Not everyone's seen it yet.
Better bring the conversation now.
We haven't seen Cabin in the Woods. Thanks for reminding us.
Sorry, guys. It's awesome. I won't mention it again. But I love how you can just take this movie and use it to kind of reinterpret every slasher film you've ever seen.
You can.
It's almost like a fucking film appreciation class for the slasher genre.
Gender?
Gender.
That is the worst gender.
Oh God.
It's everywhere. It's like something out of Hellraiser.
But yeah, the immediate moment that I stopped watching it, I thought to myself, this would be awesome if there was like a Halloween version of this, or a Crystal Lake version of this.
Like a spin-off where they show how Michael Myers does his stuff. Because throughout the movie, they refer to him like he's a big legend in Leslie Vernon's mind. So, he's doing the same kind of operation, only more successfully.
Yeah, and he's like a regular guy behind the mask. He's just silent whenever they're filming.
I think there's a deleted scene, if I remember correctly, where Leslie's talking about he just came back from Texas. He was helping have an old friend who's kind of redoing his thing.
Yeah.
And it was like a reference to the Leatherface, but the fact that...
The remake.
Yeah, it was the fact that he was remaking Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was just like... so fucking mind-bending.
God, there's so many horror references throughout that movie, and I can't even begin to count the number. Like, I'm sure I missed half of them.
Hero and I were just rewatching it, and he never noticed the fucking Elm Street girls.
Oh, really?
I know.
Those were one of the more obvious ones.
Yeah, they're right there. I don't know how you didn't notice them.
That's a great thing, too. I mean, the rewatch ability is just through the roof, because you can always go through and be like, oh, look, the way that knife's positioned, it looks just like the cover art for Halloween.
Yeah, I mean, clearly it's a film made by horror fans. Like, you don't really get that with a lot of other horror movies, but this one is just like, it's almost like it's made by us. Like, it's made by people like us.
And someone pointed out on some message board, and I really like this point, horror films, mostly in this era, are very, very serious. That's fine, you can get good movies out of that. But, a lot of times when I throw in a movie, I want it to be like Evil Dead 2, where I can kind of enjoy it while still being horrified.
Yeah, a horror movie that kind of knows that it's a piece of entertainment.
Yeah, it's got like a fun atmosphere, even though it's about a serial killer.
And the thing is, if you're a horror fan, you get a lot more out of it. But a non-horror fan can watch it as almost a straight comedy.
Oh, yeah, and other people can look at it from like a psychological point of view. So, I mean, it actually offers quite a bit for people, even if they're not genre fans.
Yeah, intellectually, the movie's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, like Mike said, it's basically a statement on media. Like, part of it is. I mean, I think the word meta is definitely like an apt description of the entire thing.
It's kind of an interesting commentary on movie fans themselves. They view the film crew as a stand-in for the audience, who are just sitting by watching this guy murder people and thinking, "Oh, this is fucking awesome! Did you see what he just did there?"
That's true. When they run out of the library after he just killed somebody, and they don't seem to care.
Yeah, and not only that, but Leslie himself seems to be a fan. Like, he seems to be like the ultimate fanboy. That's the way he acts, and that's what makes him so likable. Like, he's the most likable serial killer character I've ever seen.
He's so personable and weird.
You want to hang out with him.
Exactly, as long as he's not going to kill you later.
Yeah. It's kind of like the boiling insanity underneath his skin.
Like a Norman Bates kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting, because if you look at, all the other slasher films out there, eventually they make the bad guy look like the anti-hero. Like, he's killing these terrible, nasty teenagers that are basically people you don't like. So it's nice in the first movie where they actually make you care about this guy as a person, not just the fact that he's getting rid of people you don't care for.
Yeah.
All right.
I also love the fact that it's like there's a huge twist near the end that I legitimately didn't see coming.
Oh,
yeah, that is really well handled.
Yeah.
The romance angle, I think, really is what does it for me. Just like to rewatch the movie, because you can pick up on that and just follow it. There's more to it every time I watch it. All right. Well, I suppose we've said our fair share of nice things about the movie, but no film is perfect. So, let's do what fanboys do best and nitpick away. All right. Who wants to go first? Who's got some beef?
I'll let
I got
Mike
beef, Cody.
Who's got beef?
One,
I'll let Mike and James handle this one because it's been a while since I've seen it, so it's not that clear in my mind. But I'm sure they have more valid complaints.
MB doesn't want to harsh the buzz.
Hey man, everything's cool. Let it mellow.
I don't want to bring everything down.
Too bad.
But as much as I love the movie, the one thing that always sticks out like a sore thumb whenever I watch it is the character arc of the female protagonist. She just seems to go from watching him murder people and not really caring to just all of a sudden being a human being with feelings and a conscience, and suddenly becoming heroic, which just kind of feels weird.
Yeah, the thing that throws me off is it looks like the librarian dies, but I don't think anyone else notices it. And I think that they established that either they didn't know she was dead or she didn't actually die. It would make a big difference to that character arc.
She just kind of just fall to the side.
And you see the sickle move, but it's not necessarily shown that murdered her.
Yeah, well, because everyone's trained on Robert Englund at that point anyway.
Oh yeah, you can't help it though.
That's actually my big flaw with the movie, and I think this is like a flaw with every Robert Englund movie. He's not in it enough.
That's why we need a sequel.
His character also doesn't really do anything.
No, well, to be fair, that's also just
that's kind of the point.
On. Yeah,
well, true.
Like, how much does Loomis really do?
Yeah, just yell a lot. All those characters never did shit.
I shot him 6 times.
6 times!
At a certain point, you think Loomis would realize, bullets aren't doing it.
And just going back to what we love again, just fucking Robert Englund in that movie doing a perfect Donald Pleasance.
Oh god, that was a brilliant choice. The casting on that was just inspired. Actually, the casting all around was pretty good. Considering it's a very low-budget film, like, everyone in there held their own.
Scott Wilson is amazing in that movie.
I can't believe he's not in anything. Like, you'd think that would be a star-making performance, at least an indie star-making performance.
The guy who plays Leslie?
Yeah.
I never remember his name. I never remember his name.
Diesel.
Yeah. He's just amazing in that movie.
I mean, you think he'd have been in a ton of cult movies by now.
You would think.
Yeah, I went to, after I saw the movie, I went to look up IMDb, and I was just shocked.
Practically nothing.
That's true for a lot of people in there, though, too. Like, the woman who plays Taylor, I don't think she's in all that much as well.
Yeah, it's like they've really made good use out of unknown actors.
And kept them unknown.
The way they wanted it.
No one
knew they were going to make that sequel, and they couldn't afford to hire anyone expensive.
Yeah, we need to keep their schedule free. Make sure they never work again.
It's a hell of a thing when Kane Hodder has the most credits. Acting credits.
The biggest trailer.
I guess my biggest problem with the film is really the slasher horror elements of it aren't that effective. Like, they're there. I mean, they do them, but it doesn't feel like they're anywhere near the real level that you would get if you watched, a bigger budget like Scream or even a Friday the 13th or something.
You're talking about the horror movie cutaways?
Yeah. Like, just
even
when he's going through his plan, like when he's murdering the teens, like, none of them seem all that interesting or effective. It's just it's there.
I'll say that's something Mike and I were talking about when we were watching it the other day. What I never really caught on to until now, but I think is genius, is that not only do the cutaways look like horror movies, they look like bad horror movies. Like, it looks specifically like one of those bad early 2000s slasher movies you'd see on Cinemax and Showtime.
Just check the lighting. It's dead on.
So you're going with
the acting is just like the acting in those movies. I think so.
I do think it was especially the fact it was fairly unscary. I think was a comment on the. Maybe it was just because the movie was so comedic, downplayed the horror so much. But I think it was a comment on the slasher genre in general, which just slasher movies just aren't that scary.
Well, I mean, Scream actually does it for me.
Yeah, well, there are a few. But like in a sea, you can probably name a couple that are scary. Texas Chainsaw, of course.
Yeah.
Maybe the first Halloween.
First Halloween.
Definitely first Halloween.
Yeah.
First Elm Street.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah, Elm Street definitely. Scream still.
Actually, I think all the
Jump
Scream
Scream.
movies have their moments. I mean, 1 and 2 more so than the rest.
Yeah, Scream 1 and Scream 2 definitely, I think, have a lot of scary jump moments.
But I think that's what really separates Scream from this, because they're both definitely heavy on the meta element, but Scream can still pull off being a legitimate horror film.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Scream's definitely kind of a satire that's more aimed towards the horror side of things.
Yeah.
I think with Scream, you can definitely tell it's made by a veteran of the genre, whereas with this movie, it's fans of the genre.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it's
true.
coming from more of a comedic place, more of an outside looking in than with Scream, which was an insider looking out.
Yeah,
If that makes
definitely.
any sense.
Although it's still frustrating to me. If you look at the special features, they have one kill where Leslie hits one of the guys with the sickle, and then he gets thrown off of the barn, the second story of the barn, and falls down. And the angle they showed in the making of actually makes it look like it's a really well done scene, like a really good stunt. But the version they use in the film is clipped off, and they must have sped it up just slightly, and it doesn't look nearly as good as the one in the making of featurette. Which bums me out every time I watch it.
Yeah, he does pretty much just stab people with the sickle. But
Which is too bad because, like, his setup, like, when he's got his, the lighting in the background, he's in the fog, that looks awesome. There was one deleted little section where they show him running up to the windows with the fake cross on his back, so he can pose himself like a scarecrow. That looks fantastic, and I really wish that had made the final cut.
I wish
Like, it's
that
still there with him
sounds
standing, but they don't show the setup to it.
But, I mean, it was also kind of supposed to be Leslie's first horror film.
Mhm.
So it could have also been kind of designed not to have the best kills.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie wasn't originally about the kills. I mean, the best kill in the movie is Leslie getting his head crushed.
Yeah.
Terminator style.
And
Yeah.
the fact that there's an Easter egg that specifically explains how he got away with it. Did you guys? Oh, you had Netflix. You probably never were able to watch that.
No, the flame retardant gel and
Well,
all that.
they showed that he pulls out like a set of walnuts and a
Yeah.
cracker, and he's cracking that while
Oh, yeah.
pushing down on the apple presser to make it look like his skull is cracking.
Oh yeah, I remember. It was my favorite things. That's that whole bit.
Yeah. And just the fact that the end credits make you wait to the entire time until the very last second before Leslie gets back up.
Just
Kind
for him to
of.
get back up.
And you know it's coming the second you see the footage, but
Right.
and it's in
sit there
slow
the whole
motion.
time. They
I-
got
you
talking
could-
heads going.
You could tell it was supposed to be like this 5-second gag at the very end of the credits, but then they decide to make it the entire credits.
No, not. You can actually see like the medical attendant kind of walking around and stuff. So
Yeah.
they filmed the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, that's the great thing about it. It's this long scene of this medical attendant just walking around the room, and then it's in slow motion throughout the entire credits.
Well, it's like
Slow
security
motion.
footage, so they kind of just show shot, hold it for
Yeah.
a second, shot, hold it for a second.
Yeah, it's like every couple frames.
Yeah, and the whole time, the movie, like, it knows, it's very self-aware, so you're thinking the whole time, maybe they're just teasing us, maybe they'll actually let Leslie get back up, and you like the character so much you really want him to do it. So for, like, a little teaser clip is probably one of the most satisfying I've ever seen.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
Because there's always that last bit where you realize the killer's still alive, so they just made that the entire credit sequence. Just the fact that they know everyone knows it watching it,
Mhm.
so they just made it really long and tedious.
Just the fact that it immediately follows Robert Englund saying, "He's just a man. He's just a man." No, he's not just a fucking man. He's fucking Leslie Vernon.
But the thing is, it's essentially, they made it out to be somewhat realistic where, they set up all the clues. Well, he's got flame-resistant gel on his face so he can stand the flames. He practices not breathing for extended periods of time. So they
I
make
still
it
like to
seem...
pretend he's a zombie. Just because that's better.
Yeah, I always kind of wish they would, in the sequel, prequel, remake, that they would just then start commenting on the zombie killers, or they die and come back as a zombie.
And he would
Scott.
just be this undead Jason Voorhees hideous thing, but still talk and act like Leslie.
Yeah, he's exactly Leslie. He just happens to be undead.
I was thinking
Scott Wilson is Kennison.
I was just thinking it'd be great if they actually went that route and then just revealed it's like Leslie with really elaborate makeup.
It took him 3 hours to apply.
Yeah, he has to
everything
apply
away.
it like at dawn so he can get in character and be ready for like, that day's filming. See, I would actually really appreciate it if the sequel were to contain those kind of elements. If we ever get a sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what's the word on that? Have they given up completely since the Kickstarter failed?
They're still posting on their Facebook, but it's all stuff like, hey man, don't you love Leslie Vernon?
After the
Yeah.
Kickstarter failed, they did mention that it wouldn't be the end. That they're not giving up after the failure of the Kickstarter, but I don't know what else they could really do.
Right. And it's unfortunate because they only made not quite half of their goal.
Not even close, yeah.
I think it made like a half of a quarter of their goal.
No,
I don't-
it made about 125,000, I believe, and their goal was 400.
Yeah, so...
And
well,
basically, from my understanding of it, they had a deal where they would raise half the money with fans, and then there was going to be a production company that would essentially double the fan money to give them their full budget.
yeah.
What's frustrating is if everyone who liked that page donated a couple of dollars, they would have made that money back and then some.
Right.
Wasn't it 800,000 that liked the page?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, but only, it was, I think it was still like only triple digits that actually donated.
Yeah, well, part of the problem was they had a donation page where you could just give them money, you could buy products, you could, pledge whatever, and then they changed it over to the Kickstarter, but they couldn't directly apply those funds. So they had to send emails to everyone being like, hey, do you want to do us a favor, cancel that order and make a new one? And I'm sure
that
a
was-
lot of people never transferred their stuff.
Yeah, the Kickstarter, I thought they also made it a little confusing. They would change the perks a lot.
Yeah, they didn't really know what they wanted. They were kind of scrambling last minute to get it going. Because they gave themselves a very short time frame to organize this whole thing. It's unfortunate, but...
It is. I hope they do try the Kickstarter again, but I don't...
They were trying to get filming by, fall, so they didn't have a whole lot of time. It's too bad because the people they got on, like, Kane Hodder was going to be a big character in the sequel, apparently, prequel, whatever.
I think they got pretty much everybody.
Yeah, it was going to be a good cast. They said they had some big names lined up who were more or less volunteering.
Well, hopefully they'll pull it together.
I'm still holding out hope, but...
Just to see how a prequel, sequel, remake, what the fuck is that?
Well, I don't know. From my understanding of it, it's going to be it was mostly a sequel, but the fact that it's before The Mask made it seem like it should have prequel elements to it.
Well, I imagine it'd be like, I imagined a sequel just with flashbacks.
Yeah.
To Leslie's
actually-
origin or whatever.
Actually, now that you say that, maybe it was like a statement on like how some horror sequels are just basically remakes of the first movie.
That's true. Like, The Thing prequel felt a lot like a remake.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much every Friday the 13th is just a remake of
Yeah, the
at least the
previous
second one.
Yeah.
Or look at the
so-
Final Destination franchise. Like the most shameless remake franchise ever.
Yeah.
True, yeah.
Even some of the Halloweens.
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, that's actually a good point. That probably was a comment on that.
And it would have been brilliant too.
I still hold out hope.
It's a bummer because it's such a good film, but the fact that it was low budget meant a lot of people never were able to get a hold of it. And I think the
It
fact
was
that
low budget, but it doesn't look it, which I love.
it's within its means. Like, they didn't try for too much.
Yeah, I mean, it's a found footage movie, so it's like it's not really as hard as you would think to make.
And it's kind of purposely made to look cheap,
Yeah.
which is so you can get you don't have to make it look expensive when
Yeah,
it's
like
supposed to look cheap.
It's a local news channel, like basically funding this whole thing. So
Yeah.
their stuff doesn't look
Yeah,
great in the first
the
place.
the context they put it in such a context that it never occurs to you that it's cheap.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple spots like that one kill where the kid is his neck is cut open on the broken glass. For some reason, that just never sits right with me.
I think the editing of that was a little bit awkward.
Yeah. But I assume they were probably trying to cut around a lot of what they had to work with.
Yeah, apparently they were never really sure how they were going to pull that gag off, because at one point it was something a little bit different, and they couldn't quite figure out how to do it, so they changed it last minute to make it that kill. So I think they just didn't have enough prep time to really plot it out the way they wanted to.
Yeah, because it doesn't have a lot of impact. It doesn't even feel like you're not even sure what happened right away.
Yeah, it took me a couple of viewings to realize like his throat had just been slashed open. At first,
Yeah,
I
'cause
thought he just broke his neck.
Yeah, because I remember, like, I kept forgetting, like, oh yeah, the window's broken.
Well, it punches through the window.
Originally, Leslie was going to smoke him.
One of my favorite parts is the potheads, because
I know.
they just decided to take the normal horror movie pothead and just amp them up to 11.
Hey man, look at this scarecrow.
Like
Like,
their
even when
eyes
they're
aren't
being-
even open, and
Like,
just
even when they're running away, they just think it's awesome. That's one of the more interesting things about the movie that, again, I didn't really catch on to until watching it recently, is seeing the quote-unquote real characters of the film crew interacting with characters who are clearly just horror archetypes and act exactly like horror archetypes.
it's really fascinating to watch happen. Because it feels like you've entered a horror movie and are trying to talk sense into the characters who are doing the normal horror movie crap, but they're just not listening to you. So it's exactly like yelling at the screen, essentially.
Then they meet the popular jock who thinks that he's the star of the movie. Which is my favorite thing ever.
I just love when
Just cradling women in every shot and looking at people judgmentally. Somebody has to stop this.
I just love when they finally, get all the people together. They still make the same mistakes that like everyone in the audience has been prepped for. Like they run to the van and then realize it's not working. Speaking of which, I love that one cameraman's reaction when he gets behind the wheel, turns the engine, nothing happens, and he's just, God damn it! God,
It's
I'm
not so much
sad.
horror. It's just he's just frustrated at his own stupidity because he realized this was always how it was going to go.
And there's like no other way that could have happened. Or like he tries to run away and he's like, what the fuck? Even though Leslie's like, oh yeah, when you try and run through this mud, you'll never make it. He tells them that directly earlier in the film.
I also like the fact that when the killings start, like towards the end, and he's gone into full killer mode, it almost like it breaks its own rules. Like at one point they approach him and take his mask off, and they see like he's full on just rage behind him. Like there's no sense of Leslie that was before.
It's one of my favorite parts is
Yeah.
when the fat cameraman, whose name escapes me,
Fat cameraman.
Fat
We'll go with that.
cameraman. Todd the
Leslie-
cameraman.
when Leslie's killing him, he takes the mask off, and he just everything you've seen of Leslie throughout the movie is just not there.
It's
It's
like
like
a killing of the clown moment, but
Yeah, he's
it's
He's so into character he can't stop himself.
he's just it's like almost completely different.
Although I would say that, if there's a shred of Leslie left in that scene, he puts the guy out very quickly and with less blood than anyone else.
Yeah.
true.
And when he knocks out Doug, he does it very quickly. So he does show a little bit of compassion towards the cameraman, even though it doesn't seem like it.
He did hug them.
Yeah, but
They were his bros.
he doesn't actually stop to kill Doug. He just knocks him out of the way because he's just interrupting. And the cameraman, he does that very quickly and very efficiently as compared to some of the other people. Like that one stoner where he uses the post digger to pull his heart out and then place it in his hand.
He just thinks it's awesome.
That pot had a really small heart.
He did. Also, alive for a surprising amount of time considering he didn't have a heart.
Don't. It's not
The
important.
weed kept him alive.
It's
I'm
not
not
important.
questioning it. I think it's funny.
Oh, it is. It is.
But that raises kind of an interesting point. What'd you think about Leslie's relationship with the camera crew, knowing the plot twist later in the movie that it was always going to be them who he was going to kill? And it was always going to be her who was supposed to defeat him.
See,
I think it was a really clever take, honestly.
what I kind of felt on it was, to Leslie, the camera crew didn't matter at all. They were just a means to an end. Like, he could care less if they lived or died. He just really wanted Taylor. Like, the whole film, in my mind, is a romance between him and Taylor, and this is him kind of setting up their first real date.
Yeah, it's almost like when you watch Fight Club the second time and you realize it's a love story. It's almost something like that. Because it puts the entire movie into a different context. It's like he's not talking about all the stuff he's going to do out of ego. He just wants her to understand so that she knows what her role is in the end.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, too. Like, there's little subtle bits where she falls right in line with her own stereotype for the survivor girl. Like, there's one part where Eugene offers her beer, And she says no. And then Eugene knocks on wood and he's like, oh, I think you got a good one here.
I know that. I love going back and seeing the moments between Eugene and Taylor. It's so
AKA
fascinating.
Herschel.
Yeah, Herschel. He moves around. He gets around. Do what Rick says, everybody. Do what Rick says. I'm going to go take a nap and drink some whiskey.
And the leader of the legendary Angel family. Just throwing that out.
Paul. I would seriously love. One of the reasons I was so excited for the idea of a sequel with a lot of flashbacks was just seeing more of that relationship.
Who does everyone? Okay, does anyone have an opinion on who Herschel was in his career?
Well, that was actually something Mike and I were talking about when we watched it. I like to think that he was the star of one of those really bad Halloween knockoffs that came out in the 70s, and he just never made it. But he thinks he was something.
But the commentary in the film says he was around before Michael could do his own thing, so we know he's established before the Halloween series.
Well, there were a lot of killer babysitter movies around the time that Halloween came out. That's what Halloween was originally going to be, just a regular B movie.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think he's the killer from Black Christmas.
That's actually what I thought too.
A lot of people think that he was, that was him. I saw one theory online where he had a series of movies where he was just in there once, killed a bunch of people and ran off, and then acted as a new character. So like
he was all of them.
Yeah, like if you watch The Burning, that's him. If you watch, Murder on Sorority Row, that's him. Like
he was Maniac.
Yeah, he's just all of them.
Prom Night.
Peeping Tom, he's in all of those. That's just him, and then he gets up at the end and moves on to a different town.
And got one hot wife.
I just want to see a whole movie about that relationship. Just how that happened.
Oh,
Just their day to day.
God, that'd be such a good prequel if they were just to do that movie.
That would be fascinating.
Like a movie just about him.
Just Herschel, like going through, killing a bunch of people, moving to a new town, doing it again, all the while pursuing that one girl of his dreams, while trying to.
He ends up marrying his final girl.
She falls in love with him and wants him to kill again.
That's the other thing. It's such a twisted take that she was, the survivor, and she completely turns towards that guy, and it's such a weird romance.
Well, you see how convincing Leslie is.
Oh, right.
He makes a convincing argument for why serial killers should exist.
That's part of the disturbing element of it. It really, you can see the point of it. You can see why people would follow Leslie. You can see why people would fall in love with him.
I do.
We already knew that.
Well, that's all batch.
Oh, for years, anytime I imagined Mike, before I ever saw a picture of him, I would just think of Leslie Vernon. That's Leslie is exactly what Mike's online persona looks like.
It's honestly like he could be 30-year-old Mike.
But I also enjoy the fact that, he gives a reason for what he does and then makes sure that Taylor knows she's kind of his opposite. They're like a Zen type deal, They're opposite sides that need to come together for this moment. He has this moment where he pulls her aside and he says, I made a choice to provide a counterbalance to all things we hold good and pure. This is what we're born to do. And then, mentions that she became a journalist.
My favorite scenes.
So there's that really interesting romance there. That's probably my favorite part about the entire film, that weird attraction between them. And there's also, and this just occurred to me when I was watching it last time, like how the cider press moment is more or less just sexual climax to Leslie.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Because it makes that joke earlier in the movie, like, do I have to explain what happens at the cider press? Everyone laughs except for Taylor. And then at the end, of course, that's where he knows it has to come down.
And he's just so happy. He knew she could do it.
It's such a weird way to look at it, that he's happy because she's trying to murder him. She's taken his manhood and is trying to crush his head in a vice.
Well, it's a fascinating deconstruction of the slasher film Final Girl, where it's like the whole reason the killer exists is to build up the final girl.
To help her achieve her destiny.
It's testing her purity, but it's also in a way he's trying to take away her innocence, which is what I think he finds so attractive. Because at the end of the film, she's stripped of her innocence and emerges from the womb as a new woman, at least using the film's terminology for it.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Also has probably my favorite shot in the movie, where she finally takes off the big clunky sweater she's been wearing the entire time, and underneath she has the white blouse
The white tank
that
top.
every survivor girl wears.
And
It's like she is her.
And has anyone ever noticed she takes off the sweater, the white blouse is already stained with blood? Has anyone else noticed that?
It's
No, I
ketchup
didn't.
when she went out to eat the week before. That's why she was wearing the sweater over it.
I also love the scene where it's the last time they really meet before Leslie goes off to do his thing. And he's just sitting in that room crying, and she mistakes his tears for, him being in love with the fake virgin. And how everything he's saying basically applies to her, but she doesn't realize it.
So twisted. It's lovely.
It's an amazing script, really.
It is.
And also, just going back to that again, just the meta moment of like the slutty girl lamenting the fact that she's the slutty girl and asking why she has to die just because she enjoys sex.
And there's no answer for it. They just kill her.
I don't think there's been a movie that's really deconstructed the slasher genre as well as Behind the Mask. Scream was a satire, but I don't think it was a flat-out deconstruction.
I will say, when you watch Cabin in the Woods, you might disagree with yourself. But that's all I'm going to say. I don't want to spoil anything more than I already have.
I get it. That movie exists. I get
Don't watch it. It comes out like next week on Blu-ray.
I'll fucking watch it. Calm
Good.
down.
Good. That's all I want.
go do your Cabin in the Woods cast?
I would. Box Office Pulp for our third test episode, Cabin in the Woods. Screw that last episode.
Just you and Dante.
But and like, would you ever call Hatchet any kind of Hatchet to me is more of a parody.
See, I've never quite gotten Hatchet. Like, I enjoy it, but not to the same level as most other fans.
Yeah, everybody really loves it. I liked it. It just seemed like a kind of a slasher comedy to me.
Yeah, I would say it's
Still
more.
haven't gotten around to seeing it.
Like, it does a lot of the things from the old one. It feels like an 80s horror film. It just has that feel that people like.
Yeah, but it's aware of itself. It feels very like, hey, we're making an 80s horror film. Let's all laugh together, have fun. That's what it feels like.
I mean, it's great to put on at a party just for the kills, but, I don't really feel like there's as much you can dig into.
Well, Hatchet has a problem that a lot of modern horror movies have, where it's like the first kill in Hatchet is the best kill. They don't build. It's like that's the best kill.
God, what was the first kill in Hatchet? You gotta remind me.
It's when Crowley comes out and kind of rips that woman's head open.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually
It's done in a 360, full lighting, and it's really cool.
The one,
Plus the effect.
are we talking the one where the tongue is just kind of flapping around?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually reminds me of something that Rise really does really well, in that it actually does have something that it's building to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great too. He has a master plan. It's not like other slasher films where the plan is just try and stay alive till the end of the film.
Yeah.
Rewatching it, I was just, as I told Hero when we were watching it, the movie opens and you see the scene with the brick, which you then, like 40 minutes later, you see the lead up to, and then you watch the scene again. But
And you know everything that's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
It's also, like, the first time you see it, it's an extremely unorthodox opening, almost. Like,
It still fits in with like how you normally get a horror film, where there's that opening jolt.
yeah.
And it's done in very much a cheesy direct-to-video 2001 horror movie style. Where it's just fog for no reason and really cheesy music.
I like to think like he sets up fog machines. Like he's Batman in Year One, where he sets up the lighting and all that. Same thing.
God, that'd actually be kind of cool too if they got into a superhero where they showed like how he set things up. I mean, I guess we got a certain amount of that in Super.
Yeah, well, I've always wanted to see that with a supervillain. Like,
Oh yeah. I feel we
Like
need
that.
more movies where they have background in the supervillain, make them the hero.
yeah, well, 'cause I'm like obsessed with the moment in Captain America where Red Skull walks out in the hangar is wine sitting on a table. Like, I want to see that, like that table being set up and that wine being poured, just so he can walk out there and toast his army.
And it'd also be awesome if they had it to where it was a reporter following a supervillain, and the reporter actually ends up becoming a superhero by the villain's design.
So basically, we should just do Behind the Mask, but for
Yes.
heroes, and just still call it Behind the Mask.
Yeah.
I feel they
and
did
call the
kind of
guy-
do that with Megamind a little bit.
They did, but they made Megamind the hero at the end, which always drives me crazy. Any supervillain film, they're always going to make him the good guy by the end.
Damn
Yeah.
Hollywood.
See, that's why I appreciate this one. It had the guts to make Leslie Vernon the bad guy at the end of the film.
And still be oddly lovable.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, I completely rooted for him.
Oh, yeah. I don't know anyone who watches that movie. I take that back. One of my friends is a criminal justice major, and she could... she just...
She deconstructed Leslie.
She was horrified. She just watched and she's like, I can't believe these people are doing this. What's wrong with them? They need to stop this guy. He's a monster.
That's
They can't just sit by and let
brilliance
this
of it.
happen.
I'm glad someone has a reaction to that, because that's what's fucked up about it.
That's it exactly. The weird thing was I didn't really pay attention to that so much until I watched it with her.
Because it plays so well as a comedy, you don't notice it.
Right, and the character, like we mentioned before, he's so likable, you would go along with it. It's kind of the Charles Manson thing.
And going back to the comedy, just every time I rewatch that movie, I'm surprised by just how fucking funny it is. Like in the first 5 minutes. It's
All
hilarious.
the jokes really work.
Yeah, and it just works as a straight comedy.
Hmm.
Like, you don't... If you knew nothing about the slasher genre at all, you could just watch it as a funny comedy.
Yeah, but Mike, talk about your favorite joke. In the first 5 minutes.
Fuck, what was it again?
The turtles.
Oh, yeah,
I knew it
Turtles,
was
that was
turtles. I could have called that
I
a mile
just-
away.
Just the idea that he just has just
When we were watching it, we developed this entire backstory that he's working his way through the animal kingdom, buying pets and killing them. Not killing them directly, but just neglecting them until they die, because he wants to see how it happens. And now he's stuck on turtles.
because the turtles just won't fucking die. It's just my favorite fucking joke in that movie is just Leslie hankering down and say, little bastard just won't die. It's just the way he hankers down and just
God.
Just the weird turn from it being kind of sweet to extremely disturbing.
It's such a twist. I only keep pets I can eat. God, and you have to love the fact that they actually went to the trouble of setting up like a good mythology behind this guy that would fit in with any slasher. Like they've got Glen Echo, which definitely sounds like it should be an iconic
Yeah.
horror town. He's got his own.
And it's all bullshit.
Yeah, that's the best part. It's just the backstory doesn't really matter. It's more about the killing.
which is once again another little comment on the slasher genre.
Yeah,
And what I love
especially with how
too
the
is that
backgrounds change for each character, anyways. Like Halloween, you never really get a good grasp on why exactly Michael does what he does because they change it every couple of films.
Yeah, first, she was just a random babysitter. Now she's sister. Now he's a thorn. There's genetic engineering involved.
Then they
And
retcon
even in-
the movies.
yeah, even in the zombie movies, it's like he doesn't want to kill her so much as just show that he's a nice guy or whatever.
He wants to unite his family, and he wants them to ride away on a white horse. Or something.
Even Freddy Krueger just seems to lose interest in getting revenge for what happened to him and just kill teenagers.
Yeah, he kind of exhausted his potential, like, for that plot after a while. Like, there's no one left really in connection to who we need to get revenge on.
Yeah, so he just kills teenagers.
Because it's so much fun. Like, by the fourth movie, he's glad they killed him.
No, there's a
He gives them good dreams.
It's the business of fear. Every culture, every civilization, from the dawn of man has had its monsters. They serve a purpose, damn it.
How'd you use that accent?
Professor Flexo.
Professor Fluxo here. For good to be pitted against evil, you have to have evil, don't you?
This is C. Everett Koop talking about Behind the Mask, the rise of Leslie Vernon.
I spontaneously grew a mustache while I was using that accent. Poof. Mustache. And a string tie.
Anyway.
Tell me about colon health. Well,
Well, I think we've about hit our time limit for today, folks, so we're going to wrap things up. If you've enjoyed this podcast, do us a favor, check out the rest of them. We've got a ton. There's Pulp Nightmare, which is MB and Mike. If you enjoyed them at all, come on, you can get even more of those guys.
But
We
it
also
is
Just a double dose.
what it
All
is.
over your face.
everywhere. We also have Dork Knights. Again, if you want more MB, there's loads of them out there. You just gotta go dig.
Yeah, I don't know why you
Loads
would
of
want to
MB
dig, but
all over
you
your
know,
face.
Oh, there are loads, all right.
Speaking of loads, we also have Below the Bible Belt. Hey,
Another twosome. That's Dork Knights, Matt Johnson and I. All
Yes.
over your face.
And then there's another one. So there's another.
and that off-panel thingamajigger doodad.
the off-panel podcast,
Where there's 4 of them. All over your face.
and one's a chick, so
Yeah.
that's even
And
weirder.
one's a female though, so but she won't put it all over your face.
Anyways, all of this and more can be found at pulpnightmare.blogspot.com. So make sure to go check that out, please. And to our German fans, guten Abend. That's a wrap, everybody. Good night.
And whatever you do, don't be friends with the virgin.